じゃあ始めます。Hi, welcome all to our session. The Evolving Audio Culture. I'm Tomohiro Yajima. I've designed the sound effects in Xenogears and Vagrant Story and the Final Fantasy series. I was sound designer, audio director, sound system architect in 11, 12, and the 13 trilogy. Also, I am in charge of audio engineering of Dragon Quest X and am supervising the audio of Dragon Quest series on smartphones. In short,
Whoopsies.
In short, I have been involved in JRPG audio for years. Oh, and you might have guessed by now. But I'm not a great English speaker. I'll try my best. So please, no flames about my bad English in the session. 日本の皆さんも来ているようなんでお疲れ様です。たまにこんな感じでアドリブで日本語を挟んでいこうと思ってます。わざわざ高い金出してるのに貴重な1時間ありがとうございます。こんな感じでトークが挟まっていくという感じで。で、日本語の翻訳は、うちのサウンドプログラマーの、これから紹介する、Yuichi西松が行います。よろしくお願いします。
So he might start speaking in Japanese like that, so I'm going to translate in that case. And hi, I'm Yuichi. I'm an audio programmer in Square Enix, and I joined the Square Enix sound team 5 years ago. I worked on Final Fantasy 13-2, The Lightning Returns, Kingdom Hearts HD, Dragon Quest, and lots of JRPGs. And as Justin just mentioned, it's Xenogears, but I was like in 3rd or 4th grade back then, so not that much into the history of development. But I'm going to talk about what's going on in the present time and the technology and help him in English, I guess.
Okay. Including the going story series, including Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, Square Enix has created numerous RPGs. They are known all over the world as JRPGs and have developed their own distinct cultures. I have been involved in RPG development as audio engineer and audio director for 19 years. And through that experience, I have encountered many discrepancies between what is done here and abroad. I will be going into the details later in the session, but some of them are. まだあるのか。Music that is constantly being played. The point of focus in ambient sounds. Characterization in voice. System sound effects. In this session, we would like to introduce the techniques peculiar to Japan. Some of these may seem unnatural to you, but I will be bringing new ideas and points of focus to the developers from all over. The world is going to make the future of game audio brighter and wider. Today, I am looking forward to starting various discussions about the Japanese creativity. First, let's look at how JRPG works. Since the RPGs in the ages of Nintendo, players explore the world, strengthened the characters, and challenged strong enemies to reach the ending. And today, the basic process is yet unchanged well, actually. I'm sure most games work like this, not just JRPGs. And as RPG, the process is strictly divided into story section, exploration section, battle section, and more. And completing missions is the basic flow of the game. In RPGs, the game is driven by the story, from the opening to the ending. The player had the control, but it is the control. To say, of turning the page, I would say it's like reading a book or seeing a movie. This is the standard in Japan. And games such as Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy are representative cases of this. The diagram here shows how there may be some options for the player to proceed the story. But those options are limited by the game designers and, of course, do not affect the story at all. You can see that this is looking to a different direction compared to the Western RPGs, where the game is driven by the players. As a character existing in the virtual world, freely enjoy the role play. Next, let's talk about JRPG up to the present time, when JRPG users play the latest title of the series. ついやっちゃうね。Most of them do not expect something completely brand new, but look at how it has evolved from the previous. These are seen in UI style, game process, battle system, and more. To explain this phenomenon in one word, it is a tradition. JRPG series such as Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy have continued to build up on the previous projects, adding new features while keeping the good part of the series. So we add the latest cutting-edge creativity into the traditional and historical gameplay. It is the same in the technology aspect as well. These JRPGs have the tendency to be always compared to other games of the same genre. And so every developer compete for the new ideas. especially for audio historically many ingenuity have come out in JRPGs. And I believe JRPGs have introduced many new game of audio features to the world. Let's break down the history by how and see how JRPGs developed through the ages. Let's start with Nintendo, Super Nintendo. これ任天堂とスーパーニンテンドをもう開発してましたっていう人いるの
Okay, how many of you have developed something on Nintendo or Super Nintendo? Could you raise your hand?
おーレジェンド
No?
これさすがに俺も遊んでた時代なんだよね
You were still a user back then.
スクエアでスーパーニンテンドの最後の開発の時に僕が入社してるんで、実際に関わることはなかった。
When he joined, the Square Enix was developing the last of the Super Nintendo games, so he didn't actually join the development.
だからもうこれ作ったのだいぶ年寄りだよね。
I'm sure if those who raised their hand right now is pretty old.
じゃあ続けるね。The games of this time is where game audio originates in by this time. Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest already became popular to be the representative titles of Japanese games. These two JRPGs adopted the command battle system and up till today. JRPG developers have kept this as the standard. While bringing innovation to it, due to the hardware limitations back at this time, graphic rendering was nothing near realistic. So to bring the user into the story, music took important role in assisting the graphics and story. This is why music for these games are highly emotional and melodious. And also, it is notable that the length of the music, considering the file size at that time, is rather long. Many creative ideas were invented to cover the lack of simultaneous notes. And the number of tracks too were larger considering the storage. On the other hand, sound effects were mostly composed of noise and were basic waveforms, simple and small in quantity. Next game, PlayStation. Recordings of their musical instruments were adopted, but at this time. But at this time, music was still programmed as sequence data. JRPGs require a large quantity of music tracks, but media storage was yet not enough for streaming recorded tracks. In this time of history, attempt for reality, such as stopping the music and playing the ambient sounds only, were made. However, BGM had already become a prerequisite in the Nintendo Super Nintendo games, and many users had been excited for it. So such attempts are at many times considered as a bugs. Music stopped for some reason. Since then, some kind of music is always being played in everything. Also, sound effects have started to be important, not only the quality, but the quantity and the number of simultaneous playback enhanced. Also, from the emergence of movie scenes, the directors started to require audio rendering like the movies in the theaters. As for voices, the storage was not quite enough yet to be used throughout the game, and only in movies scenes characters spoke the lines. But to use the voices to elaborate the characters, what we call battle voices were implemented. You each will describe later. No?
Yeah, I'll describe it later.
But this became the standard in JRPGs. This is when game, not only audio, changed drastically. まあ、プレイステーションはね、劇的にゲームのスタイルが変わった時代なんでね。
So the time of the PlayStation was when the game changed a lot.
まあ、特に RPG はものすごい影響を受けて、もう見た目が全部変わっちゃったっていうね。
So the visual aspects of RPGs changed so much during this time.
Next, the era of PlayStation 2 and Xbox. Everyone started to learn from the methods of movie production. And I believe this is the time where everyone started to look for better quality in audio. Because JRPGs require 3 times the number of sound files compared to other genre of games. Many in-house tools were created to cut down the cost. But at this time, almost no tools were used. That is, tools were developed for each and every project. Every time. Tools. The increase in storage helped the audio quality tremendously. Every characters were voiced. Movies became 5.1 channel. Also, Foley sounds and other methods developed in the movie scene were incorporated. And yes, this is when the amount of interface the cells grew exponentially. As menu interfaces such as character making became complex, the user's sojourn time in the menus increased. And more sound effects were necessary to not just avoid redundancy, but to establish the part of the game world in the menus, game-wise. From the factors such as the emergence of MMORPGs, real-time action became the mainstream. So some aspects of JRPGs, such as command-style battles, struggled to accommodate to the environment. This was truly the age of technical innovation. As an example, in Final Fantasy XII, we were unsatisfied with the fact that only movies were in 5.1 channel and used a project to have surround environment throughout the game. PS2 ってサラウンドとかが少し入ってきて、ムービーシーンとかは 5.1 チャンネル、5.1 チャンネルの、ドルビーデジタルとか使われるようになったんだけど、今家にサラウンド持ってる人ってどれぐらいいる？
So this is the time when the surround sound came in, and he wants to know how many of you have a surround sound system at home when you play games.
結構多いね。
Oh, a lot.
日本って結構狭いんで、あんまりこうスピーカーをねいっぱい置く環境って流行んないんだわ。全然流行ってないんだけど、その代わりバーチャルヘッドホンとかが最近は流行ってて、それなりにみんなバーチャルヘッドホンとかでサラウンドは楽しんでると。で意外とハイエンドのゲームだと当たり前のようにやっぱサラウンドはできないといけなくて、この時代あたりからそれがすごく意識される時代になった。
So, as you might know, in Japan there's not much space for the surround speakers, so most people use surround headphones instead, and that's getting popular in Japan. Like for the high-end games, we have to make the sound in surround. So, and this is when that tradition or that was starting to come in.
あれ日本の家はうさぎ小屋って言った今。
No, I didn't say that Japanese houses are like rabbit cages.
Sorry. Last of the history section comes PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Everything regarding to audio can now be rendered in high quality. I remember feeling that all
Inadequacies.
were removed. Cutscene also ameliorated in quality, including a seamless reaction to user input. As a result, the number of pre-rendered movies decreased. Sound effects were required to be realistic and to be synchronized with the user input. Also, due to the quantity, physical simulations and procedural techniques were quickly incorporated. In addition, we were able to use in-game material in cutscenes, somewhat decreasing the production steps. However, technical issues drastically became more complex to manage the copious number of audio materials. Cutscenes and ambient sound layouts used to be done by non-audio sections of the team. But with the enhancement of game development tools. Yeah. These processes were now concluded within the audio section. This extremely helps in the brush-up phase, where the audio sections can make the modification at their hands. Voices counting in digits of thousands are managed in a database named MOML in Square Enix. It is distinguishable from the past workflow that including hardware power resulted in increasing production costs, and developers have focused on decreasing the total cost with their technology, leading to higher quality in end. Also, multi-channel environment is getting popular in most parts of the game market. But in Japan, the market share of surround audio system is not as big as it is abroad. So in Final Fantasy XIII Trilogy, we have realized a hybrid architecture to achieve high quality in both stereo and surround. まあ、プレイステーション4はってね、この後あれなんだけども、プレイステーション4はこれからだから、誰か来年発表してください。
So PlayStation 4 is coming up, so someone please do something in the next year.
じゃあ次、ゆういちの方から交代します。はい。
So you've seen the history right now, and we're going to go into the present and see what's going on right now. I'll break down the JRPG audio into 3 categories: music, sound effects, and dialogues, and how they're done and how the technology supports it. There you go. So first is music. I'm sure everyone loves the music. So Western games has the tendency to focus on creating the realistic and persuading virtual world to bring the user into the game, into the world. In contrast, JRPGs focus how deep they can bring to the story, not like the world or the game. So many JRPG users cannot stop playing the game once they start it. This is because JRPGs are created so that the users always want to know what's going to happen in the next page, or to say. So music in JRPGs has a role to induce the user's mind in such a way. By elaborating the character's emotions, it allows the players to fully empathize with the characters. Okay, here are some characteristics of JRPG music. Okay, some kind of music is constantly played in JRPGs, like Yajima mentioned. This is standard style in Japan. There are many fans of the composers themselves, and as a result, the soundtracks becomes enormous. When we often hear from the users abroad that this style is nothing near reality, do you agree? But I believe this is definitely an effective method to bring the user into the fantasy. So various genre of music like techno, rock, or vocal songs is used to build up the anticipation in the game, but a grandiose orchestral sound is almost always used. At the staple scenes of JRPGs, orchestral music is used to meet the player's expectation, leading to deeper immersion into the scene. Well, somehow this has been the tradition. Also, the percentage of emotional music tracks is high in JRPGs. Like short psychological sounds, like in the Western games, they're almost never used. And instead, melody is the most important thing in JRPGs. And, okay. And digging deeper into the music, so we have different genres of game musics. One is the cutscene music. Oops. That's going to create the empathy between the characters and the users. And we have the level exploration music, and we call it field music, or field BGM. In this phase, buoyant music uses to connect a part of the story to another. And we have the battle music. This is the favorite of many JRPG music fans. Sorry. So there's different music for different maps, different music for boss monsters. And right now, the interactive music has came into the battle music in JRPGs. And now we switch between, depending on how the player is winning or losing in the battle scenes. This is going to reduce the redundancy in battles somewhat. Okay. Oh, I think I skipped. Okay, so nowhere in the JRPGs the music stops. Well, except for the now loading screen. And because of that, JRPGs have evolved to make this more natural. And I mentioned a bit when I talked about battle music, but the battle music interactively changes. And I would like to introduce how it's done in Final Fantasy. And it's called, we call it multi-layer music transition system. Well, here's an example of here are some examples of the transitions, like field music, crossfading, seamlessly turning to battle music, coming back to the field music and from where it left off, and players are enthused by the melody of music, excited to know what's going to happen next. So in the layers, according to layer data, music commands are done automatically to crossfade, pause, or jump in all layers in the track. Okay, because there are some cases that the previous music must be continued from where left off, number of layers times 2 tracks are always available. So each of the 6, in this case, so 3 layers times 2, are synchronized and controlled to play, fade, jump, or pause, depending on the command. And this behavior is defined by the game designers or the sound designers. And programs like us just provide the environment and the tools. What's important here is how the player receives the change in melody. By changing the melody appropriately, the players understand what's going on in the game right now and brought deeper into the story. So I brought a video of an example of the music. Here it is. Lost the cursor.
終わっちゃった初めから
From the start.
price.
フィールド BGM が、フィールド BGM と警戒 BGM とフィールド BGM に戻ってバトルのミュージックに変わって最後リザルトって1分間で5曲一気にメドラーのように切り替わるっていう。
So that was 1 minute, but we had the field BGM, the enemy getting closer field BGM, and back to the normal field BGM, into the battle music, and to the fanfare. That was 1 minute. Okay, going on. Next are the sound effects. So the basic idea of the sound effects are the same all over the world, and they are made to make the world much more persuading. As the visual aspect of the game advanced through the ages, so did the sound effects. And you may think that there are many differences between JRPGs and games in the Western world, but some of these are something you will never see in others. Okay, here are the characteristics, and first of them are interface sounds. That's very complicated in JRPGs, and we call them the system sound effects actually. And they count over 200 per game. And sound designers need to control their behavior while various UI control are being done. So here, the players unconsciously discover the part of the world in the menu UIs, not just in the game. And next is the design of the ambient sounds. And music is always being played in JRPGs, as I just explained. And ambient sound must be effective enough within the music. So sound designers meticulously strive to connect the sound to the object on the levels. Waterfalls, bonfires, waves, and whatever. During the passive part of music, ambient sounds are going to increase their presence, and players will hear the layout sound of the ambience as they see on the screen. I think it's interesting that the walla is in Western games are so done like this, but instead in JRPGs we have wallas just being looped. And recently, to adapt to the countless amount of sound effects, and increasing amount of sound effects, automations for both triggering and generating sound in runtimes being done in the game consoles. In Square Enix, sound effects are starting to be generated and triggered automatically, even without any designers or game scripts working on. This makes the variety of such sound possible without increasing the manpower. So here are some technologies that if you went all the technology about sound effects, it's going to take a few hours. So I'm going to pick up like a 2 out of the many. Okay, this is a part of the list of the interface sounds in Final Fantasy 13. You can see a lot. I'm sorry it's in Japanese, but I'm sure you can count the numbers. Okay. So in JRPGs, setting interface for equipment, parameters, magic, and whatever that's in the game exists independently. And not only the menus, selectable interfaces everywhere in JRPGs, like the battles you've just seen. So the sound effects becomes the hint on what the user is doing right now. You may think that having so many different sound effects, I just counted 200, right? On different interfaces will cause confusion, but these are carefully designed by the sound designers so that the sound effects in the same category, like selecting sounds, canceling sound, share the same characteristics. But even with that design, sound designers cannot control what the user is going to do in the menu UIs. So sound designers can program the behavior of system sounds. With these designs, we create the interface of JRPGs to be fun to listen to. This is actually where some sound designers, like Yajima-san, spends most of their time in. Okay, one of the latest technology in sound effects are the procedural sound triggering and generators. 5 years ago in GDC, Yajima-san actually introduced MAST, M-A-S-T-S, automatic sound triggering system for character motion. Other than that, we have automatic triggering for passing object, where MAST is used to compute the best fitting sound for the passing object. Reverb parameters change in special moves in battles, and more is being researched right now. Also, runtime generators are under research as well. Some of them include crashing sounds of rocks, explosions, footsteps, weather, car engines, and more, I think. The benefit of these technologies done in-house that we have native application tools, visual debugger implemented in the game system. The audio programmers like us in the company always strive for high usability for these tools. So sound effects, I think, are where the technology prospered most. And the newest technologies in like Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts 3 that's being developed right now. Okay. Last of the three are the dialogues. Dialogues are the youngest of the three categories, as Yajima mentioned in the history section. This was not used until the media storage was large enough. And as the storage size grew, naturally, the number of voice files increased as well. Today, with all the characters having the voice of their own, it gives more sense of the existence of the characters, that they're here with the players. Okay, there are many distinct characteristics here, but all of them connect to one word, characterization. In English dialogues, dialects are used to show characters' background, like where they're from. But Japanese voices are also always done in a standard dialect. What is special about Japanese dialogues are there are many play on words, like the special end of the sentence word, like Kupo and Mugo in Final Fantasy. I brought some voices here in English.
Who else? I'm always here for you, Kupo. He sure is, Kupo. He's working to create his very own new universe, Kupo. I'll be right here cheering for you with all my might, Kupo.
So I'm sure you notice that Kupo is like coming out from nowhere. It makes some kind of sense in Japanese, but it makes no sense in English, right? So I'm sure the localized team is having lots of trouble for this. And okay, second one is the battle voices. When the player attacks, gets damaged, or have some action or reaction in the battles, some kind of voice gets played in Japanese games. When this is missing, most Japanese users feel disappointed. In recent scenes, this is getting more sophisticated, actually, to interact with the current what's going on in the battle right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, other characteristic of JRPG dialogues is the voice actors and actresses. Mainly due to the popularity in the animes, the actors and actresses have many fans of their own. And actually, one of the reasons for the users to buy a game in Japan is because they want to hear the voice actors and actresses in the game. Okay, so each of the actors have their own characteristics as well. So this has a great effect on game characters as well when they're voiced. This, okay, and whoops. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. Yeah. Sorry, I'm losing my cursors. Okay, what's next? Okay, and of course we have to mention number. In JRPGs, the main characters are very passive in their speech. And that's going to increase the number of the lines in NPCs. This implies that so the NPCs are those who's going to actively guide the storyline. This implies that the numbers of lines, including the NPCs, is copious, very copious. compared to any other genre of games. To keep the work for dialogues fast and low in cost, database tool that allows multi-user simultaneous editing can be used. So I just mentioned some of the technologies, but I'm going to go into the technologies of the dialogues. So database, what we call Mumo, is used.
もう無理
Momuli?
もう無理
Momuli? Okay, Momuli. It's used to streamline massive amount of lines, generating ID labels for script files, linking audio, subtitles, translation code, has dictionary management functionalities, and has simultaneous editing and viewing support. There was a session 2 years ago about this, so you can check it out in the vault. Just like the System SE sound effects I showed earlier, battle voices too are categorized meticulously and use priority control system to speak the line that matches what's going on in the battle. For this, even the short excerpts such as ya or to seen in Japanese games have many versions to express the state of mind for the characters. In addition, there are longer lines to yell out the special moves in Japanese games. Obviously, this will create a long list of battle voices to record. Okay, so we went through the 3 categories, and let's see them all happen in the game. Two.
そっち、
I'm ready. Are you? Time to repent. The end is close. Let the darkness embrace you. Evil has a price. Time stops for no one.
I've got something important to discuss with you. Could you...
大丈夫あ画面が消えちゃった
Where is the screen?
ちょっと押しちゃったっぽい
え
いいよ準備しといてさここ今ぶつかっちゃった
You might press something.
あ、サンキュー
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, and this is not coming back. There you go. So as a quick overview of the categories, the music is in charge of players' emotions, and the sound effects are there to create the environment, and the voice plays a huge role in the sense of existence and the characterization. Well, with that said, that's all for what we have in the present time, but what's going to happen in the future?
I believe the player is going to be more active. Passive players are those who just receive the story of the RPG. The players will not read the story, but actively make action to go find the story they are looking for. Because Western games are many steps ahead in certifying what the user think should be collected in the virtual world. I'm sure the Japanese games will be following that current without losing the identity of JRPGs. But it is difficult to change the story ending in JRPGs. So the path to the ending is going to be adjusted according to users' actions. Audio would not change drastically as a result. But with the change in the games, it is going to induce the users to make more action in the way each of the players want to happen in the game.
こんな感じ
So we're at the end, conclusion. So what's the difference between the game in and out of Japan? And we believe it's freedom against the rules. Given the history and the role of audio categories in games, we say that JRPGs are rendered in such a way that the players will strongly empathize with the characters and the story. From the denotation of the role-playing game, the Western games are much closer to the original meaning. In the Western games, I always feel that the concrete stage, the world, for the players to freely play around is a pivotal aspect in them. It is common that completing the missions will reveal a story, but the gameplay of the mission itself is the main focus, and the story is more in the background and the reinforcement. Compared to it, JRPGs have missions to proceed a story. Scenario is the main experience for the players, and gameplay exists to support it. It's the opposite. For example, you're playing the game and you see a door, and it has a doorknob, and you're going to expect that that's going to open, right? But not in JRPGs, because it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter. The story doesn't change if you can open it or open not. Okay. And there are always a traditional cliche scenario plan in JRPGs, how the characters collect information, character gets stronger, and defeating the boss monster. This, of course, decreases the degree of freedom in JRPGs, but users want the cliche. Another way to put this is Western games, the player is the character himself. But in JRPGs, the player is someone who experiences the story with the characters. I hope now you see why we kept mentioning like reading a book or seeing a movie. And finally, we are always looking at these differences when we develop games for the world and seek how we can make the game enjoyable for everyone on the planet. Today we can discuss the ideas about how we can make the game more enjoyable. So we're looking for more and more opportunity to discuss with everyone here, the creators from all over the world, to refine JRPGs and other games for everyone in the planet to enjoy. Okay. Thank you so much for coming here. And if you have any questions, thank you.
Q era.
If you have any questions, please come up to the mic. No?
ないかな。
So when you guys are working on kind of sound effects for JRPGs, are there any kind of standards or rules you go by? Because they all seem to have a very similar sound with like weapon attacks, monsters, menu UI. So what's your process for that?
Process for, please, can you say that again?
Just JRPG sound effects in general, like the more kind of exaggerated ones that you don't get in Western games. You know, like the really meaty sword sounds when you hit things and all the crazy explosions during special attacks.
So what's the process for the ideas behind
for
it?
Like creating the sounds.
Creating a sound for
say you need to go out and
JRPGs.
record something, what would you record?
日本の RPG で、海外のゲームと結構違うじゃないですか。
どこがみたいな話だけどね。違う。
それでなんかどんなことを考えて作ってるのかとか知りたいです。
どんなこと考えてそれは想定外の質問だな。多分日米関わらず自分の考えっていうのは変わんないんだけど、住んでる国の文化でだいぶ変わってて、日本はそれがすごく特徴がある。理由としてはファイナルファンタジーは今14まで出てて、もう30年近くファイナルファンタジーっていう存在があるんで、どうしてもうちらの中でファイナルファンタジーだったらファイナルファンタジーはこうあるべきみたいなものが少しある。すごく古くから。ドラゴンクエストだったらドラゴンクエストで同じぐらい30周年迎えてて、30年ぐらいの歴史があるんで、どっちかというと RPG の場合はこう大昔の RPG からこうずっと続いちゃってるから、そういう問題みたいなのがちょっとだけあるね。
So he's not quite sure actually, but he's guessing that there's like 30 years of history in Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. The tradition is going on for somewhat. So he's like basing his sound effects on the previous Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest and building on it. Does that answer your question?
Good enough.
So a lot of Western users tend to get a little, let me start over. JRPG battles often feature sort of dialogue repetition after a while. Like there's a single sound file for a special attack callout, for example, or there are a grand total of 3 I'm getting ready to attack voice clips, and these tend to repeat quite often over the course of an entire game, and I know that a lot of Western users tend to get quite tired of that after a while. Do you often take that into consideration when trying to do voiceover design, and is the perception of that the same in Japan, or do you think that's a bit differently received, or how do you handle sort of voiceover repetition fatigue?
So the question is, how do you avoid?
How do you handle voiceover repetition?
How do you avoid voiceover repetition fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. なんかボイスが繰り返すことによってすごい海外のユーザーって疲れることが多いっていう話をしてるんですけど、それをどうやって回避するか考えているかって。
日本だと喋んないと何もなくて寂しいって言われるんだよね。で海外だとその逆を言われるっていう。減らすか。
So in Japan, many users want to hear the voices, but the Western users are the opposite, right? They don't want much dialogues happening. So he's saying that he's going to decrease the number of dialogues in the next title.
Oh, okay then. I can guess.
Thank you.
Hello and thank you.
Hi.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about pitch and musical pitch for sound effects design.
Pitch.
Yes, because it seems like in many modern Final Fantasy games that I play, there is a lot pitch matching for sound effects, especially with music. And sometimes and it showed up in the last battles scene that we saw with lightning there. And often that's difficult if you have a lot of different sound effects or a lot of different types of music to match sound effects with. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about pitch and that importance for sound effects design.
So the question is, how do you match sound effects pitch with music, right?
Well, making decisions on that, because it seems like there are many sound effects there that are pitched, where a similar sound effect in a Western game would not be pitched by design.
I see. そう、日本のサウンドエフェクトって効果音って音程がある場合、音程がしっかりしてる場合あるが多いじゃないですか。で、海外のミュージックやつはそんなにない。それをどうしてるのか。どうしてるかをちょっと語ってほしい。
実際に音階のある、サウンドエフェクト、もしくは、ミュージックエフェクトに近いんだけど、あれは実際には作曲家と、サウンドエフェクトデザイナーがぶつかんないかどうかを考慮した上で、やっぱり曲が結構単調な時があるんで、そこで、サウンドエフェクトの方で少しメロディアスな補助をしてあげて、なるべくやっぱり全体的にメロディックな感じをずっと作り上げてるっていうのが JRPG の特徴なんで、その辺を意識してああいう音を作ってたりする。
メロディックなところに
違う、単調な曲とかが多いところでメロディックなもので入るように、メリハリをつけるためにああいうことをしてるんだけども、結構テロリロリンとか言うといいじゃん。うまく伝えて。
Okay, how should I translate this? So the melody is the important part in JRPGs, like we just explained, right? So when the music gets kind of boring, the user wants something like some kind of melody to happen, and the sound effects are in charge of that. So, and well, of course, the composers and the sound designers talked so they didn't crash, but I guess that's the reason.
逆になんで海外ではやらないの？
It sounded like you said that the sound effects are like the melody sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
And he wants to know why that doesn't happen in the Western games.
It depends. Sometimes composers and sound effects designers are very separate.
別々に作業してるから。
それつまんないよ。
He says that's so boring.
That's true. But sometimes they fight.
日本では多分ね、サウンドエフェクトはサウンドエフェクトだけを考えるべきっていうその分業ではないんだよね。だからサウンドエフェクトの人間がプランニングとかに首を突っ込むことも多いし、横がこうつながってるのが特徴なのかな。海外はやっぱり専門分野のプロフェッショナルとしてやられてると思うんだけど、その結果が結構こういい加減な境界線になってきてだいぶこういい加減な出来上がりになってくる時もある。でもそれが日本の RPG の場合非常にいい結果を生むことが多いね。
So in Japan, sound design just doesn't work alone. So there's like the borders are not so ambiguous. And sound designers work with the planners, sound designers work with the composers, and sometimes the result is ambiguous too. But the result is this: the JRPGs.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you have any more questions, please go to the wrap-up room, and we'll be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.